In August 1978, following the death of Kenya's founding president, Jomo Kenyatta, Vice President Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi ascended to the presidency. He would rule for 24 years, making him Kenya's longest-serving leader. His presidency left an indelible imprint on the nation, shaping its political culture, its economic structures, and its social imagination. The ruling party, KANU, fused with the machinery of the state, becoming its nervous system. Provincial commissioners and district officers, colonial-era inventions, were repurposed into loyal messengers of presidential authority. Ministries and parastatals were transformed from engines of policy into instruments of patronage. For Moi, power was not institutional, it was personal. Proximity mattered. Ministers, generals, administrators, and business allies found themselves elevated or discarded, depending not on law but on trust. This is the story of Moi's inner circle. The ministers, generals, spy masters, business allies, and family members who sustained his rule. It is also the story of how loyalty, discipline, and patronage became the cornerstones of a political system that defined an era. Moi inherited a state still heavy with the paternal shadow of Kenyatta. He coined the phrase "nyayo," in the footsteps, to reassure a nervous nation that continuity would prevail. But behind the soft cadence of peace and unity, Moi was constructing something far more calculating, an intricate web of control. KANU became more than a political party. It was the nervous system of the state itself. Provincial commissioners and district officers, relics of the colonial era, were repurposed into Moi's political lieutenants. Ministries and parastatals stopped being engines of policy and instead became theaters of loyalty. For Moi, power was deeply personal. Institutions meant little. Proximity meant everything. To rise, one needed not brilliance or popularity, but the president's trust. Lose it, and you vanish. At the center of Moi's machine stood Nicholas Biwott, the enigmatic man Kenyans called the total man. Even in a government built on secrecy, Biwott's silence was legendary. He almost never granted interviews, avoided cameras, and spoke so sparingly in public that his aura grew into myth. Rumors swirled about private jets, hidden foreign accounts, and coded phone calls made from secure lines deep within government offices. Yet his real power came not from his wealth, but from anticipation. Biwott understood Moi's needs often before Moi articulated them. He was said to carry two phones at all times, one direct line to State House, the other to his network of operatives who ensured Moi's directives became reality before the president even checked in. But if Biwott embodied perfect loyalty, Charles Nyanjo represented dangerous ambition. Known as the Duke of Kabadishire for his aristocratic demeanor and Savile Row suits, Nyanjo had been Kenyatta's trusted attorney general and kingmaker. Initially, he played the role of Moi's protector during the delicate transition of power. Yet whispers of a Nyanjo succession plan soon reached Moi. Allegations surfaced that Nyanjo had courted Western backers and security chiefs, positioning himself for the presidency. In 1983, Moi struck first. A parliamentary commission accused Nyanjo of plotting against the state. Stripped of power and humiliated, the Duke's fall became legend. It was a lesson written in capital letters. Under Moi, loyalty was absolute, or it was fatal. In sharp contrast, Professor George Saitoti projected calm intellectualism. A brilliant mathematician with a soft demeanor, Saitoti entered politics reluctantly, his academic robes giving way to the heat of Kenyan intrigue. As vice president and finance minister, he became Moi's bridge to international lenders during Kenya's harsh structural adjustment years. Yet when the Goldenberg scandal exploded, Saitoti's name became entangled. Billions had been siphoned through fraudulent export compensation claims. Parliamentary reports implicated him, but Moi shielded him. For Moi, loyalty outweighed optics. In the president's own words, "Saitoti is my friend, and I trust him." That trust made him both indispensable and vulnerable. Amos Waco, the Attorney General for 2 decades, perfected the art of delay. To opposition politicians, Waco was the chief architect of legal roadblocks designed to protect Moi's allies. To supporters, he kept Kenya's legal system from collapse during turbulent times. His critics nicknamed him the Smiling Assassin, a nod to his genial demeanor, masking unyielding loyalty to State House. Joseph Kamatho, the fiery KANU Secretary General, delivered Moi's words with unflinching zeal. Kamatho's speeches framed dissent as betrayal, branding critics as enemies of peace. In an era when crossing Moi meant political death, Kamatho sharpened the knife. Elsewhere, Moi deployed Musalia Mudavadi for strategic appeasement. Soft-spoken and pragmatic, Mudavadi became vice president in 2002 as Moi scrambled to reconfigure collapsing alliances. Kipkalya Cones, ever the grassroots tactician, delivered Moi's commands to Rift Valley villages with ruthless efficiency, while William Ol Nentamama rallied the Maasai with thunderous loyalty, once warning political opponents, "If you touch Moi, you touch fire." Among Moi's technocrats, Sally Kosgei brought cosmopolitan polish to the presidency, rising to head of public service and ensuring the bureaucratic machine served Nyayo priorities seamlessly. Simeon Nyakaye, a brilliant administrator and career civil servant, rose quickly but clashed with Moi over succession politics. His eventual resignation became a cautionary tale. In Moi's Kenya, even the most competent were disposable. And then there was Mark II, Moi's Mr. Fix-It. He resolved disputes that never made headlines, stitched together alliances others thought impossible, and whispered compromises into rival ears. Two was proof that in Moi's Kenya, the most powerful often never sat in cabinet. The August 1st, 1982 coup attempt shook Moi's presidency to its core. Rogue elements of the Kenya Air Force stormed Nairobi, seizing strategic installations and declaring a new government. For several hours, the fate of Nyayo rule hung in the balance. General Jackson Malinga, Kenya's first four-star general, moved with calculated precision. Loyal army units retook control block by block, ensuring Moi's survival. Standing beside him was General Mahmoud Mohammed, whose commandos stormed the Voice of Kenya broadcasting station, ending the coup's propaganda lifeline. Mohammed's audacity elevated him to near-mythic status, cementing his role as guardian of the regime. Behind the scenes, James Kenyotu, the shadowy chief of Special Branch, already knew the whispers before they became shouts. His surveillance network was unmatched. Professors, union leaders, journalists, even fellow ministers reported into his system of informants. Rumors persisted that Kenyotu was one of Kenya's richest men, with offshore holdings and silent stakes in billion-shilling enterprises. To his critics, his wealth symbolized the blurred lines between intelligence and enrichment. To Moi, his loyalty was priceless. But it was Hezekiah Oyugi, the formidable permanent secretary for internal security, who translated intelligence into brutal action. Detention without trial became a political weapon. Dissenting voices vanished into Nyayo House's basement cells, and whispers of Oyugi's involvement in the assassination of Foreign Minister Robert Uko in 1990 spread like wildfire. A parliamentary inquiry pointed fingers, but no trial followed. Oyugi remained powerful until a sudden illness, eerily coinciding with rising accusations, ended his career and life. In contrast, Yusuf Haji, then a provincial commissioner and later Minister of Internal Security, embodied diplomacy within repression. He managed ethnic tensions delicately, balancing Moi's need for control with the appearance of dialogue. Haji became the quiet, good cop in a system where fear often ruled. While the generals secured Moi politically, his business lieutenants financed his longevity. Joshua Kule, a former clerk turned billionaire, became Moi's most trusted financial aide. Through agriculture, transport, and real estate ventures, Kule handled Moi's private wealth discreetly, often using proxies to mask ownership. His name surfaced in nearly every major tender of the era, yet investigations rarely touched him. Kamlesh Patni, architect of the Goldenberg heist, embodied audacious corruption. By exploiting Kenya's gold export compensation scheme, Patni siphoned billions meant for development into offshore accounts. For years, he flaunted his wealth with motorcades, mansions, and political donations, seemingly untouchable, until the scandal erupted, shaking Kenya's economy to its core. Katan Somaya operated like an international dealmaker, jetting between Nairobi, London, and Dubai. His flamboyant lifestyle contrasted with Naushad Morali's quieter empire building, in telecommunications and finance. Figures like Deepak Kamani, later central to the Anglo leasing affair, revealed how Moi's system incubated a shadow economy where political loyalty dictated who became wealthy. Power was also a family enterprise. Gideon Moi, the youngest son, was groomed as the dynasty's future, later inheriting Kanu's leadership. Raymond Moi anchored parliamentary influence in Rongai, while Jonathan Moi, the rally-driving gentle son, softened the family's public image. Philip Moi's military career tied the family symbolically to the state's security machinery. The absence of Lena Moi, Moi's estranged wife, created a unique presidency without a first lady. Moi leveraged this absence politically, casting himself as the sole benefactor of the nation's children, personally handing out scholarships and gifts in front of cameras. Lee Njiru, Moi's meticulous press secretary, choreographed this image daily. Access to Moi was tightly controlled, speeches carefully vetted, crises spun with precision. Always close by was Corporal Leonard Chomber Yator, Moi's iconic bald-headed bodyguard, whose silent presence became visual shorthand for state power. The president, always protected, always untouchable. Moi perfected the politics of reward and punishment. Loyalists received plum appointments, businesses thrived, and scandals were quietly buried. Betrayers, however, met ruin, banished to distant postings, stripped of influence, or reduced to political irrelevance. Corruption was not incidental, it was structural. Goldenberg became the emblem of neo-economics, where state policy blurred into private enrichment. Later, Anglo leasing exposed the lingering shadow of Moi's patronage networks even after his exit. By the late 1990s, cracks widened. Civil society grew bolder, the press freer, and donors firmer in demanding reforms. Within Moi's inner circle, quiet defections began. Some, like Nayachai, openly opposed him. Others hedged their bets, cultivating ties with Moi's rivals. In 2002, Moi's attempt to install Uhuru Kenyatta as his successor failed spectacularly. Kanu lost power for the first time since independence. Yet Moi's legacy endured, not just in his children's political ambitions, but in the patronage networks he built, which survived well into the 21st century. The Moi years embedded deep political habits: patronage as power, centralization as virtue, law as control. Biwot's silence, Saitoti's scandals, Waco's delays, Kanyotu's whispers, Oyugi's shadows all became part of Kenya's political DNA. Yet Moi's authoritarianism inadvertently birthed a democratic hunger. Journalists, lawyers, and activists radicalized under repression went on to shape the 2010 Constitution, demanding limits on presidential power Moi never faced. The paradox of Nyayo is this: Moi and his circle entrenched personal rule, yet they also provoked the very forces that dismantled it. Daniel Toroidich Arap Moi ruled for nearly a quarter century, but his power was never solitary. It rested on a constellation of loyalists, generals, spy masters, business magnates, and family members who turned loyalty into currency and patronage into governance. They built roads and schools, but also scandals and silences. They delivered peace rehearsed, but justice delayed. Their shadows stretch across Kenya's politics still, reminding us that to understand Moi's circle is to understand Kenya's ongoing struggle between personalized power and constitutional order. Thank you for joining us on this journey through one of history's most defining moments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you never miss another deep dive into our past.